एक बार स्क्रीन पे ले आओ मेरे। Hello, 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 hello. Hi, good morning, everyone. How are you all doing? All good? There were some questions which were left unanswered yesterday. Happy Teachers Day. Thank you so much. Thank you for being so nice, so kind. All right, guys. Yeah. So I think the last thing that we discussed was general strategy. I think a few questions which were remaining were like, how do you schedule your preparation? How do you have a strategy? And then how do you select optionals? Let me address those two questions first before we begin and start economics. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for being so nice. Thank you for wishing me. All right, guys. Okay, fair enough. Two questions which were left unanswered, which is one, how do you strategize? Now, this is one of the favorite aspects of preparation, forming strategies, right, and then not following them. This is what is the most common thing which is witnessed in this examination. The second thing that I have to address today is optional selection. Let me address optional selection first, and then I will tell you how do you go about picking up something like strategy. All right, optional selection. Firstly, understand the weightage of this examination and the nature. Remember, your score in mains and your score in personality test is going to give you your aggregate score, and on the basis of your aggregate score, you will either be a part of that PDF or you will not be. Whatever you score in prelims is immaterial, does not really matter. Once you have cleared prelims, straight up, you have to proceed to write to mains. If you clear the cutoff for mains, then you appear for the interview. Whatever you score in the interview, your score for mains, your score for interview. A collective score of both will decide whether you eventually make it to the list, what rank, and whether you don't make it to the list at all. Which means that you have to score heavily in both mains and in the personality test. About personality test, a total of 275 marks. When you speak about the personality test, honestly, by the time you reach or you clear your mains, by the time you have to appear for the interview, there is not a lot you can change with respect to your personality. You can definitely work on some nitty-gritties. You can, try to appear a little prim and proper. You can understand how to speak, how to talk, what to do, what not to do. But honestly, 2.5, 3 months, depending upon how your interview is scheduled and when it is scheduled, it's not a lot of time for you to fundamentally alter who you are as a person. So what you score in the personality test, so long as you keep a record of what does not have to be done, so long as you minimize your errors, you're going to be scoring somewhere closer to the average, maybe slightly more than the average, depending upon which panel you get assigned, which board rather you get assigned, what time of the day is your interview. There is a lot of externalities which are not in your control. So what you're going to score in the interview really depends upon a lot of factors which are beyond your control. So expecting average marks in personality test, what you have to do is you have to score very, very heavily in mains. You have to score so heavily in mains that whatever you score in personality test does not have the power to fundamentally alter your position. Of course, it will have some impact, but you should make personality test a little redundant. Now, mains has the following components which will get accounted for. You have GS1, GS2, GS3, GS4. You have an essay and you have an optional subject to choose from. Now, each of these is 250 marks. Essay is a total of 250 marks. Optional subject is a total of 500 marks. If you look at GS4, essay and optional combined, you have a total of 1000 marks out of 1750. 1000 marks will come from optional, essay and from ethics, which means that if you invest a lot of your time in these four, a good chunk of your aggregate score will be dependent on your commitment to these three rather. Now, why am I picking out these four? Because essay is fundamentally a skill. This is something that you can start to develop today, and by the time you appear for this examination, you would have improved significantly if you started early. Ethics fundamentally is also about writing. There is a part which is related to case studies. There is one part which is general static questions, which are of the nature of mini essays of sorts. So if you understand the fundamental aspects of ethics, which will not change, right? So if you invest your time there, if you start writing answers across ethics, if you start practicing your essays, and if you invest in your optional, a good chunk of your main score is going to be dependent on this. The remaining three, GS1, GS2 and GS3, have some parts which are static, some parts which are dynamic, which means if you start to invest your time in general studies starting today, a lot of things are going to change by the time you appear for your exam, which is most likely going to be in 2027. Which means this has a significant aspect which is dynamic. Around 40 to 50% content across general studies subject would be dynamic, which means you will have to keep up with what is happening in the news. Which means if you invest 1 year in general studies, in the next year you will have to put some more efforts also. But if you invest your time in essay, in ethics, as well as in your optional, these things do not change fundamentally, which means if you start early and you invest your time here, chances are by the time you appear for this examination, which should be 2 years from now, you would have become so much better at these three. Which is why optional becomes supremely important. In fact, if you look at the top 100 candidates, unreserved category candidates who make it to IAS, Indian Administrative Services, you will very rarely find them scoring very less in optionals. Only a few aspects here and there, far and few between, are people who would have scored significantly lesser in their optionals. What you would expect them to score is upwards of 260. 280 is considered a very, very good score. Anything about 280 is a bonus, right? So you have to target 280. Now, optional is very different from general studies, because in general studies, you are required to be generally aware of the subject. You don't have to be an expert on that subject. While in optional, they will require you to have at least a bachelor level of understanding, which means something very akin to you having done your graduation in that subject. It's not necessary for you to have done your graduation in that subject, but they will expect at least that level of information, that level of knowledge and analysis. Which is why you have to invest significant amount of time in optionals, and selection of optionals therefore becomes very, very important. Now, how do you select optionals? Like I said, it is going to be fundamentally dependent upon three things. And make it very, very simple. One is your aptitude, or you may want to say is your ability. The second is how scoring that optional is. The third is your interest. Exactly in this order of preference. This is the priority. First is your aptitude or your ability. What I mean by that is, let's say you're a commerce student. For a commerce student, I do not expect him or her to have the aptitude to take physics as an optional, to take chemistry as an optional, bio as an optional, or maths as an optional, because his training or her training has not been in natural sciences. They may have studied natural sciences probably till 10th or till 12th, but for them to write an exam which will require you to have a bachelor level of understanding of natural sciences, it will require significantly more efforts. Which means that first thing you have to check for is what are the optionals that you just cannot take. For a CA, for a person who has humanities as a background, natural sciences are straight up eliminated. Engineering is straight up eliminated. Medical science is straight up eliminated. From the remaining optionals, the first thing that you have to look for is how scoring that optional is. The second thing that you have to look for is whether you are interested in reading that subject or not. What aspirants normally do is that they flip it. First, they look for whether they have an interest in that subject, and sometimes they don't even bother checking whether that optional is scoring or not. This has to be your first priority. It is of no use for you to select English literature as an optional just because you have an interest there, if in the last 10 to 12 years, there are very, very few candidates who have gotten selected with English as an optional. And even if they got selected, how much was their score in English as an optional? You will find somewhere around 260 odd. While there is a bunch of students who would take anthropology as an optional, who will take a PSIR as an optional, sociology as an optional, right, who are scoring incredibly well. At the end of the day, which optional you took, whether it was maths or whether it was medical science or it was English literature, that is immaterial. What matters is how much did you really score in that particular optional subject. So first, from the list of optional subjects that you just cannot choose, then look for 2 to 3 or even 4 or 5 optional subjects which you think you can specifically read. Amongst those 4 to 5 optional subjects, check which one is the most scoring. Now, how do you check which one is the most scoring? There is a lot of compilations on apps like Telegram where people who have gotten selected, they are sharing their marks. When UPSC declares marks, UPSC will tell you their total marks in mains, then they will tell you their total marks in interview. So you do not have a segregation in terms of how much did they score in GS, how much did they score in their optionals, right? But there are so many compilations on the web itself where people who have gotten selected have shared their marks in their optional subject. So look for the popular ones and see, on an average, those people who have gotten selected with that as an option, let's say you are to choose between a geography, you are to choose between a socio, anthropology and PSIR. Let's say these are the options that you are looking at. First thing you have to look for is how many candidates got selected using these as an optional. Secondly, when they got selected with these as an optional, how much was their score? Try to find which optionals on an average are highly scoring. And amongst these 4, pick the ones which are highly scoring. For example, let's say you see that in the last few years, anthropology has been doing incredibly well, PSIR has been doing incredibly well. If you finalize between these two, next is the question of which subject interests you more. Why is this a priority? This is simply a priority because the selection rate in this examination is 2 per every 1,000. Which means from every 1,000 candidates who are going to write this examination, only 2 are going to get selected. Which means it is a very, very high likelihood, very, very high probability that you may have to write this exam again. And if you are writing this exam again, whether you will be able to pick up that same optional again and will be able to read it again will be fundamental to your preparation. For example, you may find that Pali literature is highly scoring, but you do not have an interest in that particular subject. What if you do not get selected in the first attempt? In the second attempt, you will have to read the same optional again, which you don't want to read. This is why interest is important. So 3 priorities. First is your aptitude or your ability. There will be some optional subjects that you will just not be able to read. Select those optionals which you just can't read, eliminate them. From the remaining list of optional subjects, pick the ones that you think you can possibly read or have the aptitude for. Then, between those optionals, look for the ones which on an average are more scoring. Amongst the list of those optionals which are on an average more scoring, the third thing you have to look for is which subject interests you the most. Now, a trick of doing that is you can possibly pick up one chapter of that particular subject, optional subject, and try to read it and see whether you develop any interest in that particular topic or not. Then look for questions, the kind of questions that they are asking in the mains examination, and see whether you have the aptitude of writing or expressing your thoughts better in one or the other optional subject. Wherever you find the optional is more scoring and you have the knack of writing answers, you can possibly write answers even to complicated questions, those should be your optional subjects of choice. Alright. Now, Akash is saying that the highest marks in optional ever was 375 by Anubhav Singh in Maths AIR 8 in 2017. Yes. But you have to remember one thing. When you strategize, you do not look at outliers and then strategize. Every year, there will be one or the other outliers, people who have started in the month of March and cleared it. There will be people who have scored incredibly high in their optional subjects. When you look at those cases, and then you try to replicate their strategy, chances are more often than not that you are going to fail. Who do you have to look at? Every time you get a list of scores, you take out the outlier ones, take out the highest 10, take out the lowest 10, Then look at the remaining candidates and see what is the band. You have to look at and follow the strategy of a person which is consistently working. Especially in humanities optionals, there is no guarantee that you write same answers this year, those same answers can fetch you 270. Next year, similar type of answers can fetch you around a 300. There is no guarantee as to how some person is scoring incredibly high. But there is definitely a way of scoring more than average. What you have to make sure is that you pick an option of your choice, something which is more scoring, and then aim at scoring more than the average in that specific optional. Never frame your strategies looking at outliers. That is a recipe for disaster. Do not ever do that. Look for the cases of candidates who have consistently shown that their strategy works. All right. Now, Nadira is asking which option is better to opt between sociology and anthropology. Nadira, anthropology is a little bit more definite compared to sociology. Like anthropology has some aspects of natural sciences, more specifically biology. Right? So if you are a science student, if you have some knack of natural sciences, anthropology could be a better option for you compared to sociology, because sociology is heavily driven by how well you can really write answers to the questions. Sociology paper 2 sometimes may look to you like it's an essay paper, right? Any person can write those answers, but actually what is required for you to have is a sociological perspective. Between sociology and anthropology, anthropology is a little bit more definite because it has some elements of science. So if you ask me, my personal opinion would be anthropology would be more definite. Now, provided whether you have any knack for natural sciences, you can go for anthropology, or sociology, it really does not matter. All right. Now, what about, see, guys, I know you expect me to have an opinion on every optional subject. Of course, I will not have an opinion on every optional subject for sure. Right? I will have an opinion possibly on maths, on sociology, on anthropology, on PSIR, because these are optional subjects, and even law for that matter, because these are optional subjects that I have seen or I have had my friends take. And some friends got successful, some friends did not. So I have some experience here. Of the list of 25, 28 optional subjects, I will not have an opinion on everything. Right? Guys, this is something that you have to do. You have to see if you are stuck between, let's say, a PSIR and a history. This is what you have to do. Like every year or the last 4 to 5 years, see how many candidates have gotten successful using PSIR or a history, and look at their scores. On an average, which optional is fetching more scores? Look at them. And just don't look at 1 or 2 odd cases. Look at a bunch of people who have taken that particular subject as an optional. Differing ranks. You don't have to look at only the top 100. You have to look at many ranks. All right. I've done electrical but didn't want to take it, going for anthropology, how to justify it in the interview. Mrigang, nobody is going to ask you, why did you take anthropology as an optional? Right? So that's an incredibly redundant question. UPSC provides you a choice to take any option. You could be an engineer if you want to appear with medical science as an option. That is also an option available for you. Right? That is not what they're going to grill you at. Sir, why is PW not providing optional batch for PSIR in English? I don't know. I mean, how do I have an answer to that question? I'm not the management here. All right. Now get this. Remember this, I don't have an opinion on every optional. I have an opinion on options that I have taken or my friends have taken, very close friends have taken. So I may have an option, may have some opinion there. You will have to talk to people who teach a particular subject and then ask of them how scoring has it been in the last few years. Like speak to a bunch of people, read up on the internet. That is going to give you more information. But as a matter of principle, these are the 3 principles that you have to follow. First, check for your aptitude, whether you will be able to study that subject or not. Second is how scoring that subject is. Third priority is whether you're interested in that subject or not. If an optional has not been fetching marks in the last few years, it's the best thing for you to possibly avoid it. Simple. All right. The next thing is about strategizing, which is, let's say you have to write your exam in 2027. You're starting in 2025. Now, there is a good chance that in the 2 years, lots of things can happen. The energy that you have today, the commitment that you have today, it may wane over the course of time, and it can happen with any person, not just you, because that's how we are as human beings. So my recommendation to you would be, even if you have to write your main examination or your real examination in 2027, try to make sure that you are mains ready by 2026. This should be your target. Whenever you prepare with the intent of writing it the next year. Even if you have to write the exam the following year, right? Try to tell yourself that, you know what, I have only 1 year to prepare. Now, how would I strategize? If you have to be mains ready by 2026, what my recommendation to you would be is by the end month of December. See, if let's say, imagine that you had to write this exam in 2026, then what happens is the general target should be by December, you should be done with your optional subject and you should be done with your 4 core general studies subjects. If you had to write mains examination in 2026, if you have to appear in 2026, by December of 2025, at least optional subject and 4 core general studies subjects should be ready. When I say 4 core, this means history, polity, geography and economy. Because the remaining topics, science and tech, environment and biodiversity, in terms of return on investment here, the return on investment in these subjects is not very high, which means the kind of questions that they ask you in science and tech or in environment and biodiversity are heavily current affairs driven. They may ask you anything under the sun. Sometimes some questions get just stuck. Some questions are not, you're not able to really answer them very well, which means despite you putting a lot of efforts in these 2 subjects, chances are the return that you're going to get on that investment will not be very high. While if you invest a lot of your time in these 4 GS studies, general studies subjects, you will become so much better at understanding other aspects of your syllabus also, plus heavy weightage for these 4 core subjects. So by December, you should know what your optional subject is. You should have read that optional subject, understood it. You should have your notes ready for that optional subject, and you should have taken at least 1 test series so that you have a general idea of writing answers in that particular optional subject. Then from December till the month of May, this is where your strategy should be heavily driven towards prelims examination, which means that in these months, what you want to do is you want to focus very heavily on current affairs of the last 15 months, plus focus a lot on taking tests. Which means you don't have to do something incredibly different. What you have to simply do is change your mindset. Which means revise these 4 core subjects, pick up these 2, read a lot of current affairs, reread a lot of current affairs and test yourself. Take as many tests as you possibly can so that you are ready by the time of prelims. Once you are done with prelims, which is in the month of May, from the month of May till your mains examination, what you have to do is the remaining GS topics. This is where international relations is going to come in. This is where internal security is going to come in. Society is going to come in. Disaster management is going to come in. Ethics is going to come in. And 2 to 3 months is good enough time to do these subjects. And then you appear for your mains examination. This is a very simple plan if you were to write your exam next year. Now you're writing the exam, let's say in 2027, which means this thing can now be stretched a little bit more. Which means you do not have to worry about being mains ready by the end of December of this year, because that is very, very close now. So what you can do is that you can double up this amount of time. Which means, let's say you started in the month of July, by December you should have been mains ready. Now you can stretch it a little bit more, like by 4 to 5 months. In the month of, let's say, April of next year, you should have your optional subject up and ready. You should be very, very good at your 4 core general studies subjects, right? Enough for you to be able to crack those questions which are asked from these particular topics in the prelims examination. Thereafter, what you have to do is you have to write a lot of test series for your optional subject and focus on other general studies subjects. In the month of February of 2027, this is where you have to start focusing on current affairs and test series, right? Which is to say, if you were to write in 2026, this should have been your general targets. If you are writing in 2027, the amount of time you have to do this for doubles up naturally. But if you tell yourself, I have a lot of time till 2027, chances are that you may not even start. It is the same thing as telling yourself, you know what, I'm going to make my bed right now, or I will make my bed by the end of this day. If you tell yourself you're going to make your bed by the end of this day, chances are by the end of the day, you will not be able to make your bed. But if you tell yourself, I want to make my bed right now, there is a good chance that you will have your bed ready. Same thing here. Which means if you tell yourself, I have to be prelims ready this year itself, or I should be prepared enough for me to be able to write prelims next year. I don't have to write it next year, but I have to be ready to write it next year. Then there is a good chance that you will be able to cover 70 to 80% of what your targets were. If you tell yourself, I have to do the same thing in 2027, there is a good chance that by 2026 or September of 2026 next year, you would be back at the same stage, which is asking yourself, what should I do for 2027, right? You have to know this, that yes, you have given yourself a 2-year window, but that 2-year window has to be used as a resource. This should not bring in any complacency in your preparation that you have enough time. No. Tell yourself, I have to write this exam next year. Now, how do I strategize for next year? So, if you're ready for the next year, that means that for 2027, you will be much better than what you are today. If you tell yourself, I'm going to write in 2027, there is a good chance you will be stuck where you are in September of 2026 also, right? Now, those people who have college to manage and preparation to manage, remember this, for your preparation with focus, you have to take out only 5 to 6 hours a day, 5 to 6 hours of focused study. Now, in those 5 to 6 hours, around 1 hour should go towards newspaper, and the remaining 5 hours should be distributed in a general studies subject and an optional subject. Like I said, keep it very, very simple. Tell yourself, I have to do 1 general studies subject a day and 1 optional subject a day. What you can also do is you can have a 4-3 mix, which means like on 4 days of the week, you will only be focusing on 1 general studies subject. On the remaining 3 days, you will not be focusing on the GS subject, you will be focusing on the optional subject. Or every day you can have 1 part GS, 1 part optional, depending upon what suits your fancy, right? Do not try to club a lot of things in one day, because that is going to mess you up. If you try to do too many things in very limited time, chances are that you are going to be spreading your time thin. You will not get any results. You have more than enough time to prepare. So tell yourself 1 GS subject a day, 1 optional subject a day, and 1 newspaper. This is something that I cannot avoid. Even on days when I have to take a rest, I will at least not skip the newspaper. There will be something on those days that I will do. I will not skip anything entirely. Now, what about GS subject? Which GS subject to be picking? Now, after your college time, you have to decide 6 hours a day, which means it could be 3 hours in the morning, 3 hours in the evening. It could be 6 hours in the evening. It could be 3 in the afternoon, 3 in the night, depending upon wherever you find yourself most comfortable. But what I would want you to have is, try to identify time durations in your day where you are the most productive, where you have the least number of distractions, where you can actually focus. Because these 5 to 6 hours will require you tremendous focus. This cannot be time where you are distracted by other things, right? Now, like I said, split it 1 hour, 5 hours. This means 2.5 for GS, 2.5 for optional, and 1 hour for newspaper. This is the basic minimum. Now, which GS subject to pick? For example, this is Pinnacle 4.0 if I'm not mistaken, which means there are people from Pinnacle 1.0, 2.0, 3.0. You guys would have done some general studies subjects. For Pinnacle 4.0, their general studies preparation has started today, right? So those who are starting today, what you can do is that you can have your general studies subject as economics itself. What you want to do is take a class on a daily basis, then revise this class the next day, which is to say every day when I take a class, I will tell you this is the topic that we are looking at. That topic will be done either incompletely or completely. I will also tell you what is the next topic that we're going to study. I have already shared my Telegram channel with you. I have all my notes there. You can download it for free, not a problem. So what you can do is whatever we study today, do not revise it today itself. Revise it before the class tomorrow, right? Which give yourself some time so that you're able to recall some things, and then revise it tomorrow before the class. What you can also do is whatever we are going to study tomorrow, you can prepare for that in advance. You can read that same topic from my notes itself, right? And come to the class. Why am I saying that? It's because if you read something in advance and then you follow it up in the class, you have done the same thing twice. Whatever you repeat, chances are it is going to be staying in your head a little bit more. Right? Repetition is the key to retention. The more you repeat, the more you retain. Now, some of you who have done general studies subjects already, what you can do is whichever subject you have completed, for example, let's say you have completed history, you have completed, let's say, polity. What you want to do is take this general studies class, economics, do not prepare economics right now, only focus on the class right now and prepare any general studies subject that you have already covered. Which means after you're done with your class, the remaining 6 hours that has to be dedicated towards self-study, 2.5 hours will go towards a general studies subject that you have already completed. So that you are in touch with that specific subject, right? If you let that be, chances are that in 1 or 2 months' time, you would have forgotten everything about that specific general studies subject. Whatever you have completed, read a specific topic, make short notes of that topic and revise it, right? And for your classes, whatever is going on in economics, you don't have to focus too much on economics right now. What you can do is after economics gets completed, when you move to the next general studies subject, then in your self-study time, you can revise your economics as a general studies subject. This is what you have to do on a normal basis. Get this? This is 5 to 6 hours of self-study. This is except any classrooms or any other thing. I'm telling you, these are 5 to 6 hours of self-study. Just appearing in the classroom is not preparation. You will have to focus a lot bit more in terms of you having invested your own time. All right. About CSAT, when to start, if we are going to attempt for 2026. Now ask your CSAT teacher, how do we go about this? I will not get into it because that's a very specific domain itself. Those of you who cannot attend this class live, it really does not matter, honestly. Right? You can watch the recorded session also. If you are a kind of person who does not feel the need to ask me repeated questions, then you can watch this live class also. Right? You don't have to focus on attending the class live. You can also visit the same class in a recorded lecture. In fact, you can also speed that up and complete that class in a shorter time duration. What to do when feeling demotivated by the competition? Shanu, then my suggestion for you would be give up. The idea is if you were not motivated enough, you would not have picked this goal. The question of motivation is over the moment you pay for the course. The moment you have decided to take civil services examination, now the question is not of motivation. What can motivate you to pursue your own goal? Now the question is that of discipline. It is that of consistency. And discipline simply means even if I don't want to do that thing, I will still do that thing. Because that is what is necessary for me to be successful in my life. The question of motivation gets thrown out of the window the day you decided that you want to appear for civil services examination. And if you are a person who wants motivation on a daily basis, my honest opinion to you would be, you have picked the wrong battle. Right? This is possibly not for you. All right. Guys, when you're asking me, sir, we have 6 hours live class in PW and then evening MTech classes, how to do self-study. Mrigank, like I said, you can watch one class a day and leave the other class. You don't have to watch all classes live in any day. Right? You can pick a subject that you think you require a live class for. Any subject that you don't have an aptitude for, where you will require some guidance from the teacher on a live basis, right? You watch that class live. Subjects like history, subjects like polity, where there's not a lot of analysis, like taking nothing away from those subjects, right, which can be done on your own using recorded lectures also, right? You don't have to watch them live. But if there is a subject where you don't have the aptitude, for example, I personally did not really enjoy reading culture on my own, so I would like to watch a class for the same. I possibly may not have great aptitude for human geography, something that I'm not able to understand very well on my own. So for that subject, I would like to watch a class. Other subjects where I have an aptitude for, I can also complete those subjects, their syllabus, using recorded lectures also. You don't have to watch every class live, especially if you are a kind of person who's not going to ask a lot of questions. All right. No, about motivation, I gave the perfect answer. See, I'm not here to make reels, or I'm not here to sensationalize anything. It's very simple. It's a very, very hard examination. It's not hard because of the kind of questions that they ask you. It is hard because of the kind of competition that you have to witness. You have told yourself that I'm going to appear, I want to become a DM somewhere, I want to one day become a secretary of some department, some ministry, right? If you tell yourself you're aiming so high, and you tell yourself, I need motivation on a daily basis, then clearly it's not for you. The passion with which you want that goal should be motivation enough. And you have to compete, you have to be fierce, and you have to beat your competition. Just because some person else is doing something better than you, if that makes you motivated, then give up, then move on. You have to tell yourself, I have to become better than him or better than her. And what will make you better than him or her is hard work. And hard work requires discipline, consistency. It just tells you that, you know what, I want to become a DM. These are the prerequisites. I will have to give so much time. I will have to put in a lot of effort. If I'm not willing to do that, then this game is just not for me. Simple as it gets. How to prepare economy notes, like what you teach us. Isha, in these classes, I will be dictating notes also, right? So you don't have to worry too much. If we are disciplined throughout the year, then how much time will it take to clear this examination? Now, Manish, I'm not a wizard. I can't really tell. Depends upon what your aptitude is. See, what I can tell you for sure is that any exam in India requires some amount of luck for you to clear it. But you have to earn that luck. Which means if you are doing everything right, if you are doing everything right, if you are doing everything in terms of reading, understanding, making notes, making short notes, revising them, practicing, testing yourself, one day or the other you will be able to clear this examination. Fundamentally, to cover the entire syllabus, at least to the extent of feeling confident enough, that should require you at least the first time it's going to take you around 12 to 15 months for sure. Thereafter, when you understand the requirements of this examination, things become a little easy. But hard work you'll have to do every day. Now, when you succeed really depends upon what your competition is like. Also depends upon your luck. Sometimes there is no real answer. But how much time should it require for ideal preparation? I think 12 to 15 months for the first time. The next time, of course, you're in the cycle, then you have to continue. Right? Typically, 12 to 15 months is a basic minimum. Yeah. No, Shanu, I didn't get you wrong. You said if I don't need any motivation, but I mean, I'm not able to strategize well. This is strategy. One thing I will tell you, very simple. I was introduced to this by a lawyer friend of mine. See, you have to understand that for you to have an attempt or be attempt ready, you have to do everything which is going to make you successful. You have to find the topics in your syllabus, you have to find their sources, you have to consolidate those sources, you have to stick to those sources, you have to read them, understand them, make their notes, make their short notes, practice those questions, repeat those questions, test yourself, then you call yourself being attempt ready. If you talk to 100 people about this examination, 100 people will have 100 different experiences, you will get 100 different inputs, you will be only, like I said, confusing yourself. This is the simplest thing that you can do. You have to tell yourself, I have to appear for this examination in 2026, right? This is my broad strategy, simple as it gets. There is no need to strategize on a daily basis, right? Absolutely not. There are people who have been preparing for 4 years, 5 years, 6 years. Some people have been preparing for 2 years, 3 years. There is nothing you can do about that. You have to focus on your own plate, on your own pie. You have to become ready for taking this examination. Right? Do not focus on what the other people are doing. Focus on yourself. All right. Can I now move to the class? All right. I think I've discussed a lot of general things about this examination. I think let me just now move on to my subject because people have been wondering why am I not starting economics. All right, guys. Let us begin our class today. Indian economy. The plan of action would be, like I said, first thing we will do is we will pick topics from macroeconomics, Once we are done with macroeconomics, then we will move to Indian economy. In macroeconomics, what are the topics that we have to pick? First is national income accounting. The second topic we have to pick is money and monetary policy. The third thing we'll have to pick is inflation. Fourth, public finance management. Fifth, external sector. And sixth would be developmental economics. First, we will cover macroeconomics. Then we will move to the mains syllabus. We'll have to first understand how a general economy functions and then apply our understanding to the topics mentioned in the mains specific to Indian economy. Right? Okay, we'll begin with national income accounting. This is your first lecture, right? Ideally speaking, practically this is your first lecture. Yesterday it was just this and that. Lecture number 1. National income accounting. What will be our objectives from this particular chapter? What do we have to cover in this chapter? We have to cover the definition of income. What do we mean by income? Then we have to cover what is called circular flow of income. Thereafter, we will cover the notion of GDP, gross domestic product. Thereafter, we will do national income. Then we will talk about real nominal GDP. Then I will tell you the meaning of economic growth and limitations of GDP. These are the subtopics as a part of national income accounting. Right? The subtopics we have to cover is what is income? Second, circular flow of income. Third, what is GDP? Right? What is the meaning of GDP? How do we arrive at the value of GDP? From GDP, how do we come down to what is called national incomes? Then, what is the concept of real GDP, nominal GDP? What do we mean by economic growth? Are there any limitations of GDP as a concept? These are our subtopics from chapter number 1, which is national income accounting. Now, let's start with the first part, which is definition of income, as to what income basically means. Let's start with the very, very basic of it all. We are human beings. Every human being has certain needs, has certain wants. For example, I as a human being, I have to come teach, so I have to book a cab every day, right? And I have to come to this classroom, take this class. Coming to the class is going to fetch me my income, right? Which is why I have to be present here. My need is to get from my home to this recording studio and help you prepare, right? Now, this is my need. I am a human being. I want to own a house. I want to own a fancy car. I want to own a lot of gold. There are many needs, many wants that human beings have. We are all human beings. We have some needs and wants. Not all of my needs and wants can be fulfilled by natural resources. Natural resources alone cannot fulfill all my needs, all my wants. For instance, some of my needs can be fulfilled naturally. For instance, if I am feeling hungry, if I find a tree and the tree has some mangoes on it, then I can just pluck a few mangoes, I can eat those mangoes, I can feel satiated. But because I want to appear in this classroom, I cannot appear in this classroom naked. I have to wear clothes, right? These clothes are not available in the nature. This jacket is not available in the nature. You will not find it hanging by the tree. This shirt you will not find hanging by the tree. Or the pants that I am wearing today, the shoes that I am wearing today, you will not be able to dig these up directly from the land itself, from the soil itself. Not all our needs and wants can be satisfied naturally, which means some person has to engage in making items which are going to satisfy my needs and wants. For instance, like I said, if I have built a house and I want to keep this house secure, one way of going about it is I will build a specific wall around that house. Now this wall cannot be closed on all sides. I will also have to find a way to enter my premises, which means that I will require a gate. Now a gate is not available in the nature as is. A gate most likely is going to be made of iron. Iron ore is available in the nature. From iron ore you can smelt it, you can produce iron from it, you can produce deductives of iron, for example steel you can produce from it, and that iron, that steel can go into making a gate. But the gate is not available in the nature. Somebody has to make this gate. Some person will have to make it, which means that not all my needs, not all my wants can be satisfied through natural resources. Some natural resources may have to be transformed into items of use for me or for us. Somebody will have to transform natural resources into items which we find are valuable or will satisfy some of our needs, some of our wants. This gate has a need satisfying potential. I have just built my house. I have also constructed a wall around my premises. I want to find an inlet that can let me in and out of my premises. So I would require a gate. A gate has some need satisfying potential for me. This need satisfying potential of any item, this is called the utility of that item, which means we have needs and wants. Those needs and wants can be fulfilled by items which do not appear naturally, which can be deduced from natural resources but are not readily available in the nature. These goods and services or these items hold a certain use value for us or hold a certain utility for us. Some person will have to transform these natural resources into these items which hold some need satisfying potential or which hold some utility for us. The task of transforming natural resources into items which hold utility for me or utility for you, for everyone, this task is called production. What is production? Production is simply an economic activity. It's an activity which is engaged or concerned with the transformation of natural resources into items which hold some utility for eventual users. The task of transformation of natural resources into items of utility is going to be called production. Now, some person will have to do this, which means there has to be an ironsmith who is going to buy some iron from a plant which converts iron ore into iron, and using this ironsmith will make a gate. This gate holds utility for me and I will buy this gate from this ironsmith. Since the ironsmith is a person who is engaged in the transformation of a natural resource into item that holds utility for me, he is engaged in the economic activity of production, and hence this ironsmith is going to be called a producer. Another name for a producer could be firms. This ironsmith is a firm. This ironsmith is a producer who uses natural resources, converts them into items which hold utility for the end user. Now, when I buy this specific gate, I am going to install this gate where? In my housing compound. When I use this gate, I am realizing the utility of this gate. The realization of utility is another economic activity which is called consumption. Simply means that production is going to create output in the form of goods, in the form of services. These goods and services will hold some utility for end users. Well, when end users buy these goods and services, they will be able to realize or actualize the utility of these goods and services. The realization, the utilization of the utility of these goods and services is another important economic activity which is called consumption. So, to begin with, this is the fundamental premise, which means that human beings have many needs, many wants. These needs, these wants cannot always be satisfied directly, naturally. These needs, these wants will be able to be satisfied through certain items which have a need satisfying potential, or through some items which hold what in economics is called utility for the end user. Some people will have to engage in the activity of transforming natural resources into items which hold utility. This activity of transforming natural resources into items of utility is an important economic activity which is called production. And those economic agents, those people who engage in the economic activity of production will be called producers, will be called firms. The task of producers or the firms is to transform natural resources into items which hold utility for the end users. There is an other important economic agent which is called a consumer. Who is a consumer? A consumer is a person who engages in the economic activity of consumption. How is consumption different from production? While production is transformation of natural resources into items that hold utility, the eventual realization of this utility is the task of consumption. And those who realize this utility of these items, those people we call them consumers. So any economy will have on a broader level something called consumers, something called producers. These are two economic agents, very important economic agents which you will find in any economy. There will be producers in an economy and there will be consumers in an economy. Producers engage in an important economic activity which is going to be called production. Production of what? Production of goods, production of services. These goods and services have a need satisfying potential, have a want satisfying potential, have a use value. That use value, that need satisfying potential is going to be called utility. Utility for who? For the end consumers. The producers are going to give their output in the form of goods and services to the consumers, provided consumers give something back to the producers. There is a person who is making soaps. Now, there is a person who is making soaps. We have the need to smell good, to feel fresh. We have the need that when we enter into a class or when we meet people, other people should not feel that we are stinky, right? We want to be able to live in a society. We want to be called civil. So we want to keep ourselves clean, keep ourselves hygienic. We don't want to stink all the time. So a soap which is produced by a producer holds some use value for us. Let's say the soap is Liril. The maker of Liril is not going to give me Liril soaps for free. He is not a philanthropist. He has engaged a lot of effort in making something called a Liril soap. This Liril soap has utility for me. He is not going to give me this soap if I don't give something back to him which holds utility for him or which he finds is valuable. This is the important economic activity which is called exchange. Producers produce goods and services. These goods and services are bought by the consumers when the consumers pay back to the producers. In monetized economies, what consumers pay back is money, right? This is an important economic activity of exchange, where producers give their output to the consumers, provided consumers spend money on their output. When consumers buy these goods and services, they will use these goods and services, or they will realize the utility of these goods and services. This task of realization of utility of goods and services is going to be called the important economic activity of consumption. In any economy, you will find these three basic economic activities. There will be producers engaged in the important activity of production. There will be consumers who will engage in the important economic activity of consumption. Right? This production and consumption is going to work simultaneously, provided that there is an exchange of these goods and services between the producers as well as the consumers. Get this? Now, the task of production does not happen automatically. The task of production requires four very important things for it to be possible. These are called factors of production. Any production process does not happen naturally. Like I said, gates do not appear in the nature as is. This watch was not dug out of the earth. This specs that I'm wearing, we did not pull it out of an ocean. Somebody had to make it. Some person had to engage in the activity of production, which does not happen naturally. It has to be done. And for any production process, there are four fundamental things which are absolutely necessary. These are what we call the four factors of production. What are those factors of production? The first factor of production is called land, which in essence is a proxy for natural resources. Which means when we say land, we are not only talking about the land that exists, we are also talking about what this land contains or what can be mined out of this land, mineral resources. We are also talking about water. We are technically talking about all natural resources, but in terms of standard conventional nomenclature, we will call this land, which is going to act as a proxy for all natural resources. This is one fundamental input for production process, land or natural resources. The second important factor of production, which is absolutely critical, is going to be called labor. Now, there is a very important misconception here. Many people like to think of laborers as labor. A person who provides labor is going to be called a laborer. Laborer and labor is not the same. Labor is what? Labor is the effort that workers contribute to the production process. Labor is shram. Laborer is shramik. Labor is the effort which a worker, which a human being is going to contribute to the production process. This effort could be simply a physical effort. This effort could even be an intellectual effort. For instance, when you look at a brick kiln, a factory outlet which produces bricks, you will find there are many manual laborers who are engaged in lifting the raw materials, supplying it to the floor shop of that outlet, right? From which these machines or these tools are going to convert that particular input into a brick. You will find people physically providing an effort, physically contributing their energy to the production process. While I am also a laborer, I am a laborer for physics wala, I am a worker here. The most amount of my effort that I am contributing towards generation of this service is intellectual. There is some amount of physical effort which is happening because I'm writing something here, right? I am presenting myself here, I'm walking around, there is some physical effort, but a major part of my effort towards the production of the service that you are using at this point in time is intellectual. So labor is what? Labor you can define as the physical or the intellectual or both efforts that workers contribute to the production process. The third important factor of production is called capital. Now, when you speak of capital, this is a word, this is a concept that confuses people a lot. When I say it confuses people a lot, what do I mean? Now, in our commonsensical understanding, the use of the word capital has now been popularized so much that you start using it for pretty much everything. You have heard of something called intellectual capital. You have heard of something called human capital. When you think of finance, you have heard of something called a capital market. You have heard of investments, this and that, right? There are many things which may confuse you whenever you think of the word capital. But when we speak of the use of the word capital in economics, we will have to think of a very specific meaning, a very rather narrow term in terms of when we define capital. What is capital in economics? In the narrowest sense of the term, you will say that capital includes all physical objects that aid or assist in the production process without getting consumed themselves. What is capital? In the narrowest sense of the term, and there are many broad meanings to capital also, but here suffice it to say that capital simply includes all physical objects which are going to help, which are going to aid or assist in the production process without they themselves getting consumed in the process. For instance, I at this point in time am producing a service for you. I am producing this service located in a specific building. I would need a premise where I will have to be present so I can show you what it takes to understand national income accounting. This building is a physical object which is assisting in the production process. Just because I have come here today and I am dictating a lecture to you and I am narrating a lecture to you, I am giving you a lecture on something, does not mean that tomorrow when I come, I will find this building any lesser. This building will still remain intact. This building has helped me in producing a service that you guys find useful without this building getting consumed itself. Similarly, this panel that I'm using, it is assisting me in producing something, in producing this service. But when I come back tomorrow, just because I used it today, it's not like I will find half of this panel present tomorrow. A shoemaker, you will find, uses so many tools, so many implements when he makes leather shoes. Right? You would have found that small hammer that these people use. That hammer is a physical object which is helping the shoemaker transform leather into shoes. That hammer is assisting him in the production process, that hammer is not a part of the eventual shoe. It is not getting consumed in the process of production itself. Those physical objects which will aid or assist in the production process, which without themselves getting consumed in the process, those things we call capital. It is to be defined in the most narrowest sense of meanings here. I will explain to you later on when we discuss socialism, communism, capitalism as to what capital broadly means. But suffice it to say, for now, that capital simply means all physical objects which aid or assist in production without they themselves getting consumed in the process. This pen is capital for me. This dais is capital for me. This panel is capital for me. The building where I am recording this lecture, this is also a capital for me. The example of capital, you can say, is buildings, tools, implements, machinery, etc. All such physical objects which will assist me, help me in producing something without these physical objects getting consumed themselves. That means these physical objects will not be the part of the final output. They are only assisting me in producing something called a final output. The fourth important factor of production is called entrepreneurship, also called enterprise. Now, what is entrepreneurship? For any production process to be possible, it has to be produced by an entrepreneur. That means the business owner. Entrepreneurship is the fourth factor of production, once again a human factor of production, which is in essence the organizing principle behind the remaining three. The task of an entrepreneur is to arrange the remaining three factors of production together so as to make the production process possible. This person is the owner of the production enterprise. For instance, I work for PhysicsWala. I am not the entrepreneur here because I do not own PhysicsWala. I am contributing my labor, I am contributing my intellectual effort towards production of a service that is sold by PhysicsWala eventually. The owner of PhysicsWala is Mr. Alakh Pandey. Mr. Alakh Pandey arranged pretty much everything. He arranged the resources that were required. He arranged laborers or workers like me. He arranged the capital, and he has made this production process possible. He has taken the risk of producing something for eventual sale in the market. This is the organizing force. This is the organizing principle that brings the remaining three factors of production together so as to make any production process possible. When you think of any production activity, these are the four fundamental inputs without which no production activity is ever going to be possible. You're going to require land or resources, you're going to require workers, you're going to require capital, and you're going to require entrepreneurship. Now, for any production process to be possible, like I said, there are four things which are absolutely necessary: land, labor, capital, and enterprise. Whenever these factors of production are contributed, the owner of these factors of production will contribute them expecting a certain return from it. For instance, when I come and I show up for PhysicsWala as a worker here to produce service that PhysicsWala is eventually going to sell, I am not doing for charity. I am not doing this here because I like to do this. I am doing this here because I am expecting a certain return on the effort that I am contributing for this enterprise. Any person who has given PhysicsWala this land or this building premise has not contributed that to PhysicsWala for nothing. He is expecting something out of this production process. He is expecting a certain return. The person who has set up this entire business has not done it specifically because he likes to do it or he likes the thrill of it. He is doing it because he is expecting a certain return from this production process. He is expecting that when this service is produced, people will find it valuable and people will pay for this service, which means the cost which is going to get involved in the production process would be recovered with a certain premium. Every entrepreneur is expecting a return from his efforts, the effort of organizing the remaining factors of production, making production possible. Whenever we contribute factors of production to the production process, the returns that accrue for contributing those factors of production, these returns are called income. Those who contribute land or natural resources, the return that they are going to get is going to be called rent. Rent is the return for contributing land or natural resources to the production process. For natural resources, it's actually called royalty, but suffice it to say rent here. Those who are contributing their labor to the production process are also expecting a certain return. I am contributing my labor to the production enterprise. I am expecting a certain return for this. Their return is going to be called wages. Those who contribute capital to the production process are not contributing capital because they do not expect anything. They're in fact contributing capital because they want any return on their capital. That return, we will call this return interest. And those who contribute the spirit of enterprise, the spirit of entrepreneurship, those who take the risk of organizing the remaining three factors of production to make production possible, to produce some output with the intent of selling it in the market, they are also expecting a certain return from this, and their return is going to be called profits. These returns that accrue for contributing factors of production, these returns are called income. Income is simply put the return that you are expecting for contributing a factor of production, which means that provided you contribute many factors of production to the production process, you will have many sources of income. But income will not originate unless there is any production which is happening. If there is production, only then can there be any incomes. Get this? Like I said, incomes are the returns that accrue for contributing a factor of production. If you contribute land or resources, the income that you're going to be generating from it is going to be called rent. If you're contributing labor, the return that you're expecting is going to be called wages. If you're contributing capital to the production process, the return that you're expecting on this is going to be called interest. And those who contribute on enterprise, the return that you're expecting is going to be called profits. Depending upon how many factors of production you are contributing, you may have many sources of income. But if you are not contributing anything to a production process, you are not going to get any incomes. Simply means income is a derivative of production. If there is production, there is going to be incomes. If there is more production, there is going to be more incomes. If there is going to be less production, there will be less incomes. And if there is no production, there is going to be no incomes. Incomes originate because somebody is producing something. Without any production process, there is going to be absolutely no incomes. And depending upon what you're contributing, you may have multiple sources of incomes. For instance, I am a landowner. And I am also an employee at PW, which means that while I am working for PW, a lot of my time, my effort gets invested here. I barely have any time to focus on my land. I can give this land to a farmer who is going to grow rice on this land. I can rent my land out or lease my land out to this farmer. If I lease my land out to this farmer who is going to be using it for a production process, the farmer will have to pay me some rent on it. But I am also contributing labor at physics wala. For me contributing labor for production which is happening for physics wala has to pay me wages. So technically speaking, I am contributing two factors of production towards two different production processes. This farmer wanted to grow rice. He does not have any land of his own, or he does not have sufficient land of his own. I am leasing my land out to him and he is going to pay me a rent on it. He is going to be using this land for production of something from which he is going to be recovering this rent and also making some profits on it. I am also a worker at physics wala. So physics wala is contributing or giving me a return on my labor, which is going to be called wages. I have two sources of incomes here for contributing factors of production to two different production processes. I could also be, for instance, Steve Jobs. He was one of the owners of Apple Corporation and he was also the chief executive officer. He was the CEO as well as an owner of Apple, which means that being an owner of Apple, he is an entrepreneur while he is also a worker at the enterprise. For being an owner, he has a share in the profits made by Apple. And for being a CEO, he is going to be deducing or deriving some salary and some wages from this enterprise. He is contributing two different factors of production, but to the same production process. He is an entrepreneur and also partly a worker at the same enterprise. For being an entrepreneur, his source of income will be the profits that the enterprise is going to generate, some share of these profits. And for being a CEO is a worker, is an employee at an organization. For being the CEO, he is also going to be making some salaries for contributing his intellectual effort to this enterprise itself. Depending upon what you contribute to the production process, the return that you're going to be getting, the corresponding return, is going to be called one of your sources of income. Income is very different from wealth. Is income the same as wealth? Absolutely not. Income and wealth have a strong correlation with each other. Having income can contribute to the process of wealth creation. For you to understand it very simply, just remember this, that income has to be earned, while wealth has to be built over the course of time. For a young person, he is going to be investing, or he is going to be investing a lot of his physical effort, his intellectual effort as a worker at some company. His incomes are, let's say, low to begin with. Over the course of time, his incomes are going to improve. With those incomes, he can build some very valuable assets over the course of time. An old person who has retired from active employment may have a lot of wealth but does not have a lot of income. I may be young, I do not have a lot of wealth, but I may have much more income than an older person. Your income will include a component which you are going to be spending on your requirements, on your sustenance. The remaining part would be your savings. From your savings, you can buy many valuable assets. For example, from whatever money I make or I earn at Physics Wala for contributing my effort here, for contributing my labor, I am going to be getting a salary. From this salary, there will be some expenses that I will have to manage. The remaining part of my salary, outside of my expenses, will become my savings. And from my savings, I can buy many valuable commodities. For example, I can buy some gold. I can buy land somewhere. I can buy shares of an enterprise. I can buy bonds. These are all assets, valuable assets, which promise to generate some return for me in the future. The collection of all of these valuable assets, the stock of all of these valuable assets comprise my wealth. My income has a strong correlation with my wealth, but these are not the same things. Income is earned every time you contribute something to the production process. It's a flow variable. While wealth is something which has to be built over the course of time. From your incomes, you will generate some savings. From these savings, you will acquire valuable assets. The total stock of valuable assets that you have acquired over a period of time is going to be contributing or is going to be building your own wealth. This is the fundamental difference. Any problems understanding this part as to what incomes mean? Many people have a tendency of confusing income with wealth. Both are fundamentally different things. Income is a flow. Income, every time you will get only because you have contributed something to the production process in the form of one or multiple factors of production. From the income that you generate, take out your necessary expenses or take out your expenses. If you have something left, that will be called your savings. From those savings, you will buy assets which are going to be generating some return for you, assets which hold some value, where you expect that value to increase in the future. The collection, the total stock of these valuable assets that you have acquired over the course of time comprise your wealth. Problems understanding this part? All right. Now let us begin by writing something, right? Write down chapter number 1, National Income Accounting, and we will first write the meaning of some very, very basic terms. Write it down. Chapter name is National Income Accounting. Right? This is National Income Accounting. Then follow it up by writing objectives of the chapter, which is to say, what are the subtopics that you have to cover in this chapter. This is written in front of you. The chapter heading would be National Income Accounting. Then write down objectives of the chapter and write down this is something that we have to cover. Incomes, circular flow of incomes, GDP, gross domestic product, national income, real and nominal GDP, economic growth, limitations of GDP. These are your objectives. Once you have written this down, give me a thumbs up so I can proceed to dictate other things. Before every chapter, right, in the beginning you should write what are the things that I'm expecting to learn in this chapter. Once you have written these objectives of the chapter down, let me know, give me a thumbs up, right, so I can proceed to dictate further. All of you all, please do that. Please help me. Done? All right. If you've written this, then mention production. The next subheading you should write is production. Write down the meaning of production. Write down production is an economic activity. Production is an economic activity which involves the transformation. Production is an important economic activity or is an economic activity which involves the transformation of natural resources into items that hold utility for the end user. Production is an important economic activity, or is an economic activity concerned with or which involves the transformation of natural resources into items which hold utility for the end user. These items could be in the form of goods. These items could be in the form of goods or services. These items could be in the form of goods or in the form of services. In the form of goods or in the form of services. Then write down the meaning of goods. Next subheading would be goods. Goods. Write down goods are tangible / physical products. Goods are tangible / physical products which hold utility for end users. Goods are tangible / physical products which hold utility for the end user. Comma, whose ownership can be transferred from one to another. Goods are physical objects, they are tangible objects which hold utility for the end user, comma, whose ownership can be transferred from one to another. Then write down services. Have you written goods down? If you've written goods down, then write down what do you mean by services? What are services? Write down services. Please mention it. You write down services are important activities. Services are intangible. Services are intangible, non-storable, non-transferable. Services are intangible, non-transferable, non-storable, economic activities. Intangible, non-storable, non-transferable economic activities which hold utility for the end user. I will repeat it again, Twinkle, don't worry. I will repeat the definition of goods also. First, write down services. Services are intangible, non-transferable, non-storable economic activities which hold utility for the end user, comma, that are produced and consumed simultaneously, comma, that are produced and consumed simultaneously, produced and consumed simultaneously, without resulting in the ownership of any physical object. Without resulting in the ownership of any physical object. The definition is very, very clear. What are goods? Like we said, goods are tangible physical products which hold utility for the end user, whose ownership can be transferred from one to the other. What do we mean by tangible? Tangible means something that can be seen, something that can be touched. Goods are physical objects. For example, this pen is a physical object. This pen holds a certain utility for me because I will need this to write on my board. And whoever makes this pen, the moment I pay for this, the title rights to this pen are transferred over to me. I become the owner of the pen. Previously, the producer was the owner. The moment I paid for this pen, he gave me this pen. That means he has exchanged title rights with me in exchange for money. The ownership of the pen can be transferred from one party to the other. These are tangible physical products that hold utility for the end user, whose ownership can be transferred from one to the other. Now, when you speak of services, what are services? Services are economic activities. These are intangible, non-storable, non-transferable economic activities which hold some utility for the end user. Now, when we say intangible, what does it mean? It means that you cannot see a service, you cannot feel a service, you cannot touch a service. Because you cannot see, you cannot feel, you cannot touch it, it also cannot be storable. You cannot transfer a service from one person to the other. These are consumed the moment they are produced, and they result in the ownership of no physical object. For instance, if I have to come from my house to this center, I would find it absolutely convenient if a person could pick me up in his car and drop me off here. He is providing a service. When I need this service, only then is he going to show up, and he's going to be making me sit in his car, he's going to be dropping me off here in exchange for money. Now this seva, this service of having me commute from point A to point B is intangible. I cannot see this service, I cannot feel this service, I cannot touch this service, but it holds some utility for me. It would have been so much more convenient for me to be dropped off in a car rather than me walking to this center. And after this service is over, it's not like I have acquired any physical object. Similarly, you as aspirants require some person to guide you, some person to give you a direction to your preparation. You need to understand what are the requirements of this exam, how do we clear this exam. I am providing a service to you. I am appearing every day here, I am contributing my intellectual effort, and you are getting some knowledge, you are getting some direction, some guidance which is going to shape your preparation, take it into a certain direction. Services are consumed the moment they are produced, which is why services are also called, they are intensely local, which means both the producer as well as the consumer has to be in the same spot for the service to be produced and consumed simultaneously. For example, if you are feeling sick, you would want to visit a doctor. The doctor is going to give you a healthcare service, is going to give you a consultation service. He's going to examine you and he's going to recommend or prescribe some medication to you which is going to help you recover. Now this service you cannot hold, you cannot store somewhere. For you to consume this service, you will have to be where the producer is and get this healthcare consultation service. The moment it is produced, it is consumed as it is. It cannot be stored anywhere. If you want to get a haircut, you and the barber will have to be at the same place. It's not like the barber can give you this haircut service so that you can store it and use it in the future. Which is why it is said that services are intensely local. They are produced, they are consumed the moment they are produced. And once a service is consumed, you do not find yourself owning any physical object. Get this? Alright, so you've written production, you have written output in the form of goods, in the form of services. Then write down the definition for utility. Utility. Sir, will you also provide everything in your notes that you're dictating right now? Nikita, yes, pretty much everything is there in my notes. I mean, I may make some tweaks here and there because I don't speak from my notes. Sometimes I will, right? So you will find some minor differences here and there, but not significant. Everything that I'm dictating right now, you will find it mentioned somewhere in my notes. So you don't have to worry too much. There are some people who like the feeling of, dictating and writing notes. So I'm doing this, right? Next, write down the meaning of utility. Write down utility refers to the need/want satisfying potential of any item. Utility refers to the need or want satisfying potential of any item. Utility refers to the need/want satisfying potential of any item. It can also be called the use value of any item. Manu Chandana is asking, do we get a compilation notes after this, sir? I'm not very sure, but like I said, if you go to my Telegram channel, all my notes are there for free. You guys can download it. You don't have to worry. Right? Some of you like to engage also, so it's okay. Some people like to write. So I'm going to be dictating them. Otherwise, in the other batches, I typically did not dictate because it saves me a lot of time. So those notes you will find in my Telegram channel itself. So some person who likes the feeling of writing can write. Those people who don't want to write, they can refer to my notes. Broadly the same thing, 90-95% the same thing, right? Utility refers to the need/want satisfying potential of any item. It can also be called the use value of any item. It can, Rahul is asking Khazana notes same. I don't know what Khazana is. What is Khazana? Guys, you have to pick and decide whether you want to write or not. What I'm telling you is my notes are there in my Telegram channel already. Those of you who want to avoid writing, you can just refer to my notes. Those of you who want to write, right, I'm dictating so you can write. Right? Let's not discuss this beyond that. It's done. Right? If you have written the meaning of utility down, then write the meaning of consumption. Consumption. Write down consumption refers to an economic activity. Consumption refers to an economic activity concerned with the realization of utility of items. Consumption refers to an economic activity concerned with the realization of utility of items. Right? Then write down, for any production process, this is to be separate, right? Write it down separately. For any production process to be made possible, for any production process to be made possible, there are four fundamental inputs for any production process to be possible. There are four fundamental inputs which have to come together for any production process to be possible. There have to be four fundamental inputs which have to come together. These are called factors of production. For any production process to be possible, there are four fundamental inputs that have to come together. These are called factors of production. These include land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. For any production process to be possible, four inputs or fundamental inputs are required to come together. These are called factors of production. These include land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. Land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. For any production process to be made possible, four fundamental inputs have to come together. These are called factors of production. These include land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. We'll see an experiment, no? What will happen is, if I find that dictating in the class is taking too much time, we'll find a hack around it. But if it is great for you, if it's working out, we'll work with it, not a problem. Right? Four factors of production. These include land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. Then proceed to explain. Land is a proxy for natural resources. Write it in a point-by-point manner. Land is a proxy for natural resources. Thank you, Ram Kishore, for doing this for me. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Land is a proxy for natural resources. Right on the next point, labor refers to the intellectual or physical effort. Labor refers to the intellectual or physical effort that workers contribute to the production process. Labor refers to the intellectual or physical effort that workers contribute to the production process. Write down the third point. Capital refers to all physical objects. Capital refers to all physical objects that aid or assist in production. Capital refers to, you can copy it from here also. Capital refers to all physical objects that aid or assist in production without they themselves getting consumed in the process. That aid or assist in production without getting consumed, without they themselves getting consumed in the process. Tangamanigandan, a strong name. What I will do is, guys, I'll take a poll and see if most of you guys want a dictation. If you guys don't want dictation, then I'm more than happy to not give any dictation. Right? Sometimes it helps for you to, write down something, whatever you have learned in the class. Right? Whatever works. I'm going to take a poll on my Telegram channel and see if that works. If dictation works, great. Because a lot of people start complaining that I'm not dictating. See, it's the same thing. If you want me to dictate, I will dictate. If you don't want me to dictate, I will not dictate. It doesn't really hurt me. I've already given you my notes, right? There'll be some minor modifications on those notes in my class dictation, right? And class dictation is also going to be a little bit more of a summary. Mrigang, just look up my channel, no? And go there for files. You will have files numbered, right? You don't have to give me your input here in the class itself. I will take a poll on my channel and I will ask you. Let's be civil, right? You don't have to talk about this here. We'll figure it out, don't worry. Right, we have started, so let's just continue and roll with it. Capital refers to all physical objects that aid or assist in production without they themselves getting consumed in the process. For example, tools, machines, implements, and buildings. For example, tools, machines, implements, buildings. Write down entrepreneurship. आप मॉडलिंग क्यों नहीं करते? अरे यार, मेरे को लगा था आप इकोनॉमिक मॉडलिंग की बात कर रहे हो. एनीवे, entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship refers, write down, entrepreneurship refers to the organizing principle. Entrepreneurship refers to the organizing principle which brings the remaining three factors of production together. Which brings the remaining three factors of production together. To make production happen. Entrepreneurship refers to the organizing principle which brings the remaining three factors of production together to make production happen. Right? And in the end, right, once you have written this down, then write down the meaning of incomes. Write down the meaning of incomes. Write down incomes refer to the returns. Income refers to the return that accrues. Income refers to the return that accrues for contributing factors of production to the production process. Income refers to the return that accrues for contributing factors of production to the production process. That accrues for contributing factors of production to the production process. Depending upon the number of factors contributed, depending upon the numbers of factors contributed, a person may have one, many or no sources of income. Depending upon the number of factors contributed, a person may have one, many, or no sources of income. Have you done? Written this down? Income refers to the return that accrues for contributing factors of production to the production process. Depending upon the numbers of factors contributed, a person or one may have one, multiple, or you can say one, many, or no sources of income. Done? You can make a star mark and say production is linked to two things. Production provides employment to the people and hence provide incomes to the people. Please write this down. Right? Make an asterisk and write this thing down. Production, arrow, employment and incomes. Which means that employment and income is a result of production process. If there is more production, there will be more employment, more incomes. If there is less production, there will be less employment, less incomes. If there is no production, there will be no employment, there will be no incomes. Simple. Right? Income is the return that accrues for contributing a factor of production to the production process. Depending upon the number of factors contributed, one can have single, multiple, or no sources of income. It is production that provides employment and incomes. Kirti is saying, can you explain income in a more simple way? Kirti, every time you hear some person making income, that person would have sold something. For example, an auto driver makes his daily income from selling a specific service. The auto driver is producing a service. He is producing a service of having people transport from point A to point B. Right? He finds many people, many commuters who want to go from point A to point B. An auto driver helps them avoid walking from point A to point B, has them delivered from point A to point B in lesser time and in a much more convenient fashion. The auto driver is driving an auto. He is both the entrepreneur as well as a worker. He is using this machine, which is the auto, and he is using a resource, petroleum, to probably drive that particular auto. So he is producing this specific service. For producing this service, he is going to be charging you something because there is some cost to maintaining the auto, there is some cost to buy the fuel, and because he is providing or producing this service of having people delivered from point A to point B, he is expecting a certain return on it. Because he is producing and selling a service, he is making some incomes. I am making income because I am contributing to a production process. Physics wala is producing this service which helps people prepare for civil services. And I am a worker here. I contribute my intellectual effort, I contribute my intellectual labor to this enterprise, and we help produce this service which we sell. When you buy this service, only then physics wala gets its revenues and it distributes wages to workers like me. My income would not have happened if I was not employed. Why am I employed? Because physics wala is producing a certain service. For physics wala to produce something, it will require factors of production, including a worker like me. Because they are producing, they are employing people, and because people are employed, they are contributing a factor of production, and hence they are going to be making incomes. Income is always going to be derived from one or the other production process. If there is production, only then will there be incomes. Nancy is asking, how can an auto driver be an entrepreneur? Because auto driver is also the owner of that transportation service. He does not work for anyone. He is the owner. He is owner and self-employed. He is the owner as well as the worker. Get this? Labor and laborer difference. Labor is the effort. The effort that I am making to write this. Whatever is going on in my head, my intellectual effort, that is labor, shram. Laborer is the person who is making that effort. Someone getting money from his parents on a regular basis without making efforts will be income or not? Certainly not. That is not the income. That's called pocket money. Pocket money is not income. But his parents may be making incomes because they are employed somewhere. For example, your parent could be a government employee. They are producing services on behalf of the government, and hence they are going to be getting compensation or wages for that. From their wages, they are giving you your pocket money. Your pocket money is not your income. Get this? Most of y'all are unemployed. Because you are unemployed, you have no source of income. If you were ever employed, you would be getting your monthly incomes, right? If you have monthly incomes, you have invested it somewhere. Let's say you have bought shares of a specific company and the company pays you dividends. That dividend would be a source of income because you have provided capital to a specific company. Get this? Have you written income down? Then write down wealth. Write down wealth. Only that thing that you get for contributing a factor of production to the production process, only that thing is going to be called incomes. Just remember this. If you want to make your life simple, remember this. Only that return that you are expecting for contributing a factor of production, only that return you're going to be calling your incomes. Simple as it gets. Do not complicate it any further. Then write down wealth. Last thing you're going to write down is wealth. Write down, while incomes are earned for contributing a factor of production, write down, while incomes are earned for contributing factors of production, comma, wealth is built. Wealth is built by acquiring valuable assets over a period of time. While income is earned by contributing factors of production, wealth is built by acquiring valuable assets over a period of time. Wealth is referred to as the total value, or you can say wealth is the total value. Wealth is a total value of all assets Wealth is the total value of all assets owned by an individual. Wealth is the total value of all assets owned by an individual, household, or society. Wealth is the total value of all assets owned by an individual, household, or society. right? You have to understand this. Income you will earn for contributing a factor of production. Wealth you will either have to build or you will inherit. That means your parents may give you inheritance. Your grandfather may have been a big land owner, right? He is going to give you that land after he passes away. You are either going to inherit wealth or you are going to own or you are going to build wealth. How do you build wealth? From your incomes. Part of your income goes towards basic sustenance, the remaining part could be saved. This saving could be used to buy assets which you think will generate returns in the future. You build a collection of assets, that total value of the collection of assets is going to be called your wealth. Get this? Any problems? This difference has to be very well understood because the chapter is national income accounting. We're not going to be talking about national wealth. We are going to be talking about incomes. Get this? All right. What will be the timing of this class? The timing of this class is going to be the same, 11:30 to 1:30, like a 2-hour class throughout the course. Nothing, no change there. See, the most important part of this chapter is this, circular flow of income. This is the most important part. It will require you almost little to no writing, no dictation. You will have to just understand this. Circular flow of income is going to give you a bird's eye perspective over how a big economy functions, right? So we will invest one specific lecture, one entire lecture over the circular flow of income, because from here you will understand the concept of GDP and you will understand the concept of national income so much better, right? So we will be focusing on circular flow of income tomorrow. We'll have to go for 2-sector, 3-sector models and 4-sector models on the circular flow of income. We'll understand how a general economy functions and what are the various economic agents in any general economy, what are their roles and how do their roles impact the total income of any economy, right? Tomorrow we will pick up circular flow of income, one entire class on this, because this is possibly the most important thing that you will have to understand throughout the course of time. Once we are done with this, then we will have probably 2 more chapters on GDP, understanding the meaning of GDP and methods of computation of GDP. Then how do you go from GDP to national income? Then the meaning of real and nominal GDP, what is meant by economic growth, and towards the end, limitations of GDP. So expect this to be done in the next 3 classes. Right? It is going to take me a total of 4 odd classes to get done with this first chapter. It will take more than 60 lectures if you continue dictation. I don't know, honestly. Like, I'm trying to see, online I have never dictated any notes, but online I've only taken 1 lecture, one entire batch so far. So if it is going to take me so much more time, we will find a hack so that not a lot of time gets taken. If it's a lot of waste of my effort and time, then we will avoid that. Or I will try to make it very, very succinct, right? I will try to find ways so that you are able to write it down very quickly. Right? We'll find hacks for this, but so long as it is working, great, not a problem. If you teach entirely in English, students will not be able to understand. Please keep the subject in English, but explain in Hindi. Rahul, for Hindi and English, we have different batches. This is an English batch. This is an English only batch. Titan and Pinnacle are English only. So we have candidates from across the country. We have candidates from the Northeast, candidates from the South who are not very comfortable in Hindi, which is why the medium of instruction is English. Right? For Hindi and English, we have different lectures. We have different classes only. All right. The only thing I can do is I have to be able to communicate. English is the lingua franca here because this is the bridge language. Everybody is going to understand this, right? So there is not even going to be a trace use of Hindi in these lectures. Sometimes I will use one or the other odd sentence, but because we have to, be able to communicate with all types of aspirants speaking or comfortable in different mother tongues, I think English is going to be our medium of instruction and not even trace use of Hindi. I'll try to make sure that there is no use of Hindi at all. Sometimes when it is absolutely necessary for me to like danto you, then I will use Hindi, otherwise, nah, English. Alright guys? Well, see you. I'll remember this. Tomorrow's lecture most probably is going to be the most important lecture of the entire series. This circular flow of income, where we will get a bird's eye perspective on any economy. Alright? See you guys. Meet you tomorrow.